Hi guys, Hengist here from House Hengist Comics, and a very big welcome back to the channel. Today it is Blitzkrieg, episode 19, The Devil's Bridge. First we have the news. British papers are stating what is going on. Winston Churchill has just become Prime Minister, and the British believe that Hitler is following the Schlieffen Plan. Ultimately this is exactly what the Allies' strategy is based on. But in Holland, as the bombs fall, what we're starting to see the development of precision bombing here, especially with the Stukas. The Dutch can only endure, and their anti-aircraft has been highly effective against sort of slow-moving transports. And as we've said, this is going to have a knock-on effect later in the war. As we can see out of the wing of this RTG, there are parachutes scattered all over the place. And, you know, these landings are basically including dummy parachutes, which are designed deliberately to draw off the enemy, to basically sow confusion, and they're being effective. But not all landings have been going well. The Dutch are reliant on three things. Their canals, basically, key defensive positions, roadblocks, fortified positions here with infantry, with mobile elements able to move to positions that are under threat. It's all about delaying to get the Allies to basically come to their aid. And these water barriers are highly useful. Effectively, they're blowing bridges. But like the Germans, the Dutch are still recruiting as the war started, so to speak, and aren't fully ready. They're mobilizing everyone. We've got also the element of very pro-German supporters in Holland, and I'm trying to ascertain the relationship between town and country here, but it appears from what I'm reading that there is far more support for the Germans in the sort of urban conurbations where the wealth is, because in the poorer areas they're much more remote. They've got to think about more to do with survival than political affiliation. So for the Dutch, it's a very, very shocking time. And the Dutch forces today basically will consist of two forces. Those that were basically surrounding the parachute forces, which is the bicycle troops and these conscripts who've just arrived by train, and those that are actually garrisoning the bridge, so to speak. And I will refer to this as the bridge detachment. We can see a lot of Lewis machine guns here, and we'll also see our first anti-aircraft weapon. There won't be a lot of, I suppose, mobile elements to this game. One armoured car left over from the battle which is in pursuit, possibly Dutch air, but a lot of this has been shot down. They fought very, very bravely, from what accounts I've seen, with inferior aircraft. Now, the German forces today basically will consist of what has effectively escaped from the farm down that irrigation canal. They are very depleted. The war correspondent would have a difficult one explaining that. But they are fearless veteran, and they are basically going to be supported by two platoons that could possibly turn up through the deck that is part of their overall company. So, without further ado, let's get into the situation report. Well, in the last episode, Lost Luggage, we saw a company assault that was supposed to be attacking a bridge, but it got deviated because the Junkers came under flak fire and they had to drop their load. They arrived at a farm, were surrounded by the Dutch. They started with 3 platoons and some weapons. Basically, they are down to about 1 platoon with 2 mortars and a heavy machine gun. They had to crawl along the ditch. There was a running gun battle, and Sergeant Schultz led an incredibly gallant attack from the offset and performed brilliantly. But they now find themselves in the cold, wet woodland of Holland. They've got their prize in sight. They can see it just illuminated in the half light. They've got to take this bridge, and also further downstream they've also got to knock out the pumping station which controls the flooding. Beyond that, the bridge itself is a military position, or the police headquarters, and so that's going to be a problem. So we're seeing them exit basically 3 turns of night in pursuit by the Dutch, and then 12 turns to take the bridge. Again, we're using Achtung Panzer, which is a fast-paced system, simple to play, hard to master. But critical to this is the battle deck that controls the reserves. In this particular encounter, we've got 2 platoons that basically became lost. They're attached to the original company. Could they turn up? Could they make a difference? Let's see. Let's get into the action. Well, the Falschrimjager are cold and wet, crawling through those irrigation ditches, constantly being pursued by the Dutch, who finally catch them on the third turn. It is still very cold in those woods, and effectively they push up. Schultz has to make a decision, so he decides to turn about as conscript Dutch infantry race towards the bridge. They're intending to cross it. Schultz decides that he's got to do something, and so he elects basically to open fire and basically engage. His fire is ineffective, but he presses his men forward into assault. However, he loses 4 men basically from defensive fire, pulls his spade card out, and effectively closes. They weren't pinned, and basically they managed to destroy 8 men killed and wounded. They push the scouts back, who failed to counterattack, and they effectively fall back to where they originally started, which was near the irrigation ditch. They decide to basically hold up there, as we get a no sweat card which is played. That ignores the night rule, and so the conscript infantry can double up that road heading to cross the bridge as we get daylight. And suddenly the drone of aircraft, the Falschrimjager look up, cheer, as 2 Me-110s, they get on the radio and fail their role. There is such foul language, I can't express it. The air passes overhead, and now the Falschrimjager move up. They're intending to move towards the pumping station. They set up their mortars and they get ready to fire, whilst we see on the bridge basically the traffic, the coach and the other car are waved through as the first mortar rounds land from the Falschrimjager, killing 8 to 12 men basically there. But the conscripts unpin very rapidly. Concealed fire card is now played basically by the MG42. That means it doesn't lose its gun to ground. They're open fire, but they're ineffective. The coach whizzes past basically Van Houten, the one I see, and basically heads towards the police barricade, who are in all-round defence. They wave these guys through as well, so the civilians manage to escape. The conscripts basically run pell-mell across the bridge, doubling again, but under mortar fire, take more casualties, as basically the Dutch Panzerwagen turns up and makes his reaction, and basically interacts with a dubious looking civilian who points out that the Falschrimjager are moving towards the pumping station. We get artillery now landing as the armoured car and also the Dutch mortars move across that bridge. They're fortunate to survive. When we get an ammunition check, which is played on the first platoon, Raiders platoon, that fails. On a 1 it will be out of ammunition, and effectively the mortar truck moves down the road. We've also got the sudden arrival and a blast over the radio of the pioneers, who've turned up close to the village, and effectively there's joy from Raider. He's now no longer alone. He pushes across the open ground, trying to gee up his men. He's taking his machine gun and Sergeant Schultz with him. They're trying to move under smoke, but the smoke rounds fail to basically detonate in the right place as the pioneers push past the pig pen. The Dutch police, however, move out. They've seen what's going on and move towards and then occupy the buildings adjacent, preparing to fire defilade. And also we see the conscript who'd moved back, try to dig in, assault or try and assault the pioneers. We also get an event card. This is the 4th platoon, so now the Germans have 3 platoons. There's such cheers, but 4th platoon are sodden. They've gone into a flooded area when they jumped. Their kit weighs twice as much as it did. They're exhausted, and basically the Dutch mortars aren't in a position to fire on them, but are looking to fire in at Raiders' men who are moving over this open ground, when suddenly a flamethrower erupts into the building from the pioneers, scorching basically an entire team to death. The whole building ignites, and there's general terror from the police. They've never seen this type of weapon. We also see smoke now finally ranging in and giving cover. We also see the conscripts now make a really gallant assault, but they're just basically shot off and fall back, losing about 8 men. The Falschrimjager then elect to assault. They think they've got it easy, but they lose another 8 men trying to basically assault these conscripts. We then go into a brutal melee as the flamethrower, a bit gung-ho, opens fire on the second building. A flame of hot sort of napalm erupts into that building, setting that alight. As the melee starts basically with the fight with the pioneers and the conscripts. This goes on for a couple of turns. Ultimately, what is to happen though is the Falschrimjager are victorious, but they've lost another 2 bases in that melee. Only have 3 left now, as 4th platoon, basically exhausted, sodden, basically come out with their kit weighing twice as much, only to face the armoured car. However, Raider is moving his men across this metal bridge, intending to support them as the Pioneers win their assault and press ahead. But the Dutch, who are guarding the bridge, now play this card. No jokers have been used, no one appears to have one. They open fire, re-roll their misses and wipe out the Pioneers. There's a deathly silence in the room, as also the Dutch now press their effectively their scouts forward and start shooting. They take out a spotter as Raider moves forward, ever pressing. But 4th platoon opened fire on the armoured car and caused some damage to it. They set fire to it, but it's put out. But Raider now, knowing the vehicle is disrupted, assaults and basically destroys it with a stick grenade. That's the Panzerwagen out of action. He's now close to the bridge guard and smoke is covering him, which is excellent tactical use. He continues now to press up that canal. He's lost about 4 men only so far, but the scouts are on his mortars and he needs those mortars. And the Dutch mortars open fire, but basically their shots land harmlessly into the canal, splashing basically the men. The mortars have to turn about and basically shoot with their pistols and rifles. They drive the scouts off, but basically an assault occurs. Fortunately, the Germans play a lucky bastard and save a team and then win that assault effectively. As 4th and 1st platoon now move up again under another mortar barrage, which again hits the canal. They're getting ready to an assault. There is about 3 turns left. More artillery landing all over the place now, which has switched to HE. Those mortar team have driven off and effectively broken the scouts. They've also basically had an outstanding performance from their medic, who just was absolutely brilliant. Saved about 3 or 4 teams, and they also were very lucky to get the medikit as well, and they made that save on a 5+ as well. So they've got through. They've been a lot of luck for Raider, but he is basically being aggressive and doing what the Falschrimjager do. He drives into the next platoon. He takes fire from the anti-aircraft weapon, but he gets in and basically he starts butchering the Dutch infantry, the bridge detachment. But there is a breakthrough as well, and that basically destroys and overruns that anti-aircraft gun, and they move into the trenches, looking now to close. There's 2 turns left. The Dutch company, having lost the armoured car, breaks, and effectively the mortars are off to Amsterdam pretty damn quick, along with the anti-aircraft command team, which has just abandoned its post. We see mortars still landing. The Dutch now counterattack, rally themselves, and are led by their 1RC, Van Houten, who basically, pistol in hand, charges forward, but basically is shot down, and the Dutch break. They've taken it. Against all the odds, the Falschrimjager have taken this bridge. They lost the Pioneers. They've lost another 10 or 15 men. 4th platoon is the only intact platoon, and that lost 3 teams on landing as well. They've got 1 heavy machine gun and 2 mortars, basically, to hold this bridge. There are 2 cards to go, but fortunately, no Dutch reserves arrive. And we're in a position where they can basically issue orders to the police to put the fires out, and they take control. It's a German victory, gentlemen, and an outstanding victory at that. Well, what can one say? Again, another absolutely classic game which we'll remember in the club for a long time. Brilliantly played by the Falschrimjager, and you know, they took a lot of casualties, and casualties to expected in airborne operations. But I also think the Dutch performed really, really well, and not to be underestimated either. It was a great game, so please post your comments, you know, below. And in the meantime, take time to remember the fallen. In the meantime, this is Blitzkrieg. It's over and out for me. Stay lucky, stay safe. Bye for now.